Hey guys, we're just getting the show warmed up. Thanks for joining us tonight. Enjoy a little music. If anybody is interested, there's a YouTube song. Living large. All right, guys, we got some folks joining us. We're letting some people pop in, and we're going to get started. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Hey, guys, thanks for joining. So tonight is Jon Ferrian Live, episode number 3. So the first episode we had a couple of weeks ago, we had Scott Sparrow on. Thanks for joining again tonight, Scott. I see you're on. Thank you for being here. The first episode, we talked a little bit about the show as a whole, kind of goals for the show, what we want to do with it. Episode 2, we did a touch base with Redneck Barbie up in Alberta, Canada, her and her store, and everybody up there having a good time, talking a little bit about safety there. And tonight, our plan is to bring you guys a little note from NWAC. So the Northwest Avalanche Center tonight is going to be the focus. This past season, we had the Northwest Avalanche Center. We started a Sled ambassador program, and we tried to just start a new program for getting snowmobilers out on the hill. And so I'm going to try to bring in Kyle Engberg here tonight. So Kyle, let's see if we can bring you on. All right. Looks like it's trying to add him. We'll see how this goes.
Hey, there we go.
Nice.
Hey.
Welcome, Kyle. How's it going tonight?
Oh, it's going. I'm trying to. Is this good enough lighting for you? Did I get that down?
Oh yeah, you're beautiful. We just need you in the center of the camera now so we can see your whole face instead of half of it.
Sorry, I'm trying to. Of course, I gotta line it up to make it look good. But yeah, it's going.
Cool.
Never done this, so I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, no worries. So just hang tight for a minute. We'll explain to the guests or to the people who are watching tonight kind of what we're up to. So. For those of you guys who know, I'm on the board of directors for the Northwest Avalanche Center, and back about a year ago, probably the fall, last summer, working with the Northwest Avalanche Center and the board of directors there, one of the ideas that we had to kind of continue to bring the NWAC out to the snowmobile community and get the snowmobile community engaged with NWAC. One of the ideas that we brought to the table was to launch an ambassador program. And the strategy and the goal around the program was to get 2, great sledders out in the mountain. And those 2 folks actually had a whole bunch of people apply. And for anybody who's out there that potentially was one of the applicants of that too, I would tell you that we had a really tough time picking our top 2 candidates to be able to come into the season. Brandon Bell and Kyle Engberg, who's here with you tonight, were our final candidates. And, we're looking for folks who were just able to get out in the mountain, talk to people on the mountain about things like, avalanche awareness. Did you check the forecast? Do you have the right safety equipment? Do you have, gear? And, have you been through any training? And just drive awareness for the program. And through our search, Kyle Engberg here was one of the folks who kind of joined the program. So I'm going to turn this back over to Kyle for a second here and let him just introduce himself. So Kyle, why don't you tell us just a little bit about who you are, how you got into sledding, give us the view right up until about the time you started with NWAC, and then we'll jump in from there.
All right. My name is Kyle, obviously. I have been on a sled since I think I was about 2 and a half. My parents stuck me on a little kitty cat. I've been hooked on this sport ever since. I graduated. I went to Wazoo, graduated last spring, got home in July, started working in October. Still, as you can kind of see, living at home. Bought a snowmobile before I moved out because my priorities are important, that I needed to have a nice new snowmobile before I could worry about living somewhere else. I've been riding like my whole life until about 2 or 3 years ago. I wasn't really too kind of trained when it came to avalanches. I actually had people that we were riding with called my dad once and told him that they didn't want to ride with me because I was kind of not the best rider when it came to just being safe and when it came to knowing all the knowledge and all the kind of experience regarding avalanches. I didn't have any of that. I was a young and reckless kid that essentially was a liability when I rode with people. That changed when I took an avalanche class. I did the 3-day Avalanche 1 class with Mike Duffy. made me realize I was really stupid, kind of changed my riding style completely, how I think about things, how I go about riding, how I analyze all the terrain around me. And then this year, ran into you, and you had told me about this ambassador position. I love to talk. I'm in sales. I talk all day on the phone. That's what I do. And you kind of pitched it as, it's a little outreach position. So all season I've been talking to people on the hill regarding avalanches, regarding safety, regarding, do you have the education? Do you have the knowledge? And I've met a lot of people. I feel like I've made a positive impact on multiple different groups of riders that I've engaged with. And I've actually ran into multiple people where I saw them at the beginning of the season and they were kind of thinking about things one way, had no gear or some gear, or some of their group members had gear. And then at the end of the season, they'd all taken an avalanche class. They'd all gotten, all the beacons, all the probes. Whereas the first time I ran into them, one person had a beacon and it was a group of 4. And the rest of them had shovels, but that was it. They had shovels. And
all right.
It's kind of nice to see that I had some sort of impact, I guess, throughout the season.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, that's the Cliff Notes version of what we'll get. So let's dive into each one of those pieces a little bit too. And let's talk a little bit about your riding and your riding style back in the day. As you started out riding with your dad when you were pretty young. And I think when I moved to the state of Washington here, 5-6 years ago, you were still running around in an M6. So tell me a little bit about your mountain thrashing on an M6 and kind of how that led up to people who were riding with you, maybe thinking you were a little bit of a liability. I mean, you had mad skills, man. You were up there shredding above people who had, 800s and long tracks. So tell us just, dive into that for a little bit too, and then we'll transition. I'll keep walking you through it.
So I grew up riding on the M Series chassis. I love Arctic Cat. I was going to get an Arctic Cat, stayed on Polaris for a couple of different reasons that I'll go into later. But essentially, I grew up riding the M6. I was on it when I was 10 or 11. We upgraded and got an M8. So we figured, we've been riding the same sled. Why not just get the exact same thing, but with a little bit more power? In terms of kind of my safety and my abilities, when I was about 13, 14, 15, 16 area, that was when I started to be able to actually do side hilling and kind of take my riding to a next level, get to areas that I previously was either too afraid to go to or I just couldn't get the sled to. That was when kind of what you had said, I was running into people who had 800s, who had long track sleds, and it was a 141 M6, and to this day I am on a 163 now, but I do love the 141. Short tracks can be fun. I've always wanted to have a 141 Turbo 800. That's a goal. So one day, I'm on my way. But in terms of things, grew up on a Cat, always been on Cat. Cat's been faithful to me. 6,000 miles between 3 M Series sleds. And then up until this year when we started telling people that, we hadn't had any problems. And then the M8, the clutch kind of exploded. Now I think we blew a cylinder. I don't know. Something's wrong with it now, but I've always been on Arctic Cat. I've always loved Arctic Cat, and I've definitely kind of upped my riding from around 15 to 20. That was when I started watching a little bit more of the schooled videos with Barant, and I started kind of taking my riding to a point of not, is this a good place to go, whereas, ooh, can I do that? So if I saw, a line, it wasn't more of, should I do it, it was, can I do it? Because I think I have enough power. I think I have the ability. So that was my thing.
And then, it's a great point that you make too. I mean, a lot of people, I think, are out in the mountains, looking at lines and figuring out, like, can I make that line? Can I do it? But they're not always looking at it from that safety angle, right? It's like, is that a hill that potentially could slide? If it does slide, what's below it? Is there a train trap and those kind of things? And it sounds like, just over a few short years, you've transitioned. Is your dad in there giving you a hard time?
Oh, he held up a sign but wanted me to let everyone know that M6 is for sale. So $2,500. Not the M8, the M6. I've only ran it into a couple of trees, so we're good.
Sounds good. But yeah, I mean, getting to the point where you went from just kind of riding kind of recklessly, not really worrying about yourself and others, to there was probably a pivotal moment. It sounds like when people were questioning your dad about, hey, I don't know if I want to ride with Kyle. He might be. I don't want to be the guy that's going to have to go dig him out or, pick him up off the bottom of a tree if he comes down the hill too fast or something. And it was cool. It sounds cool. I don't know that I've heard that part of the story before. And so to me, that means a lot to me that you're able to hear feedback like that, take it seriously, and take action.
That was the big thing. Is there's a couple of different groups that I've rode with kind of over the last 10 years, and one day I went up to, I believe it was Gallagher, with a group of friends, and that was when I was in college, so I got about 3 rides a year. It was my first ride. I just wanted to hit everything. I wanted to go hit all the hills. There was 2 feet of new snow. I had a general idea of where I was, so I thought I was kind of invincible. And they spent about a half hour, not a half hour, about 20 minutes to 30 minutes going, where's Kyle? Where's Kyle? When I was essentially riding in circles around them, but I was on the hills. Essentially the next day, kind of the main person that we rode with called my dad and said, we can't ride with you guys anymore. Kyle's a liability. He doesn't take safety seriously, and it's not just we don't want to have to find him down at the bottom of a drainage ditch. It's if we go down somewhere, he is not going to be able to find us. And that was kind of the biggest eye-opener for me when I took the Avalanche class. I always thought I had a general idea of how to use a beacon, how to find someone, because it beeps more when you get close to someone. It's not that hard. When we did the first actual training class, where like the first drill where we buried my dad a foot under the snow, we just buried his beacon. I was walking in circles for about 15 minutes until Duffy came over and actually helped me find him. So the biggest kind of shell shock to me was that when I first used a beacon, I thought I knew what I was doing, but I had absolutely no idea how to use it. And that's kind of the big thing with the outreach, is I would run into a whole bunch of people that had all the gear and they had no idea how to use it. I ran into a bunch of guys that were kind of my age, 20, a little older than me, 25, 30-year-old young dudes, all on new sleds with the sled wraps, and you can tell they were doing jumps. And when I asked them if they had gear, the guy responded saying, we got the beepers, but we don't know how to use them. He didn't call it a beacon, it was a beeper. They had never played with them. They were all riding very capable sleds, and I could tell these were the guys that are going into those areas. They're not trail riding. They're going into the back bowls. They're going into the fun zones, which we all go to. But those are the ones that the big thing is, for example, when you're riding up a hill or riding up into the area, if you look up on an aspect and see multiple slides, that's a sign that, okay, this aspect, if it was sliding over here, same aspect can slide over here. That was something that it would be completely clueless to me. Like normal signs, the idea of a terrain trap, I never even thought the whole idea of a terrain trap and how, slides, boom, you're all going into one area. Same thing with just looking for warning signs and avalanching, analyzing the terrain around you. That was the big kind of, when I took the class, I really realized that I wasn't doing it, and it's really reflected on my riding in the fact that now, instead of getting into the zone and jetting up the first hill, I kind of get in, we stop, and we chat. Okay, what are we doing? Like where's the safe spot? Where are we stopping? Are we going to stop at the bottom of the hill now? No. If there's in a slide anywhere, are we in the point of safety, or are we in the runoff zone? So it's...
Hey, Kyle, so we're almost 15 minutes in here. Let's just take a moment and pause. We're got a lot of folks in. We got 23 people watching us right now live, which is awesome. This is going to, and what I want to do is I want to let the folks know who you are. So Kyle Engberg here is one of our Sled NWAC ambassadors for this past season. We're here tonight talking on Jon Ferrian Live, episode 3, doing a little just avalanche awareness tonight, kind of an NWAC focus. And what I want to ask everybody here doing is, you're obviously on here, you're watching. There's a lot of great people on here hoping to learn some things. Do us a favor and help get the word out. Oh, look at that hat. Throw that baby on. We can be twins.
I was going to wear it, but, you're already... as much as I wanted to match, I only have one NWAC.
It's like we shop at the same store or something. Huh?
So anyway, there we go.
Let's have a quick call to action. So the folks who are on and watching, do me a favor and share this out. So Scott Sparrow, I know I can always count on you for that. And don't forget where to share it, right? Like share it on your own page too. But if you follow key groups that you think would benefit from this, I know groups that when I've been on and I've shared things out too, is there's Sledders 2.0, there's Pacific Northwest Snowmobiler. There's several different groups out there that I think would benefit from this message. And what we want to do here at NWAC is just connect with the sled community. And so if you can help me do that, that's going to be a big advantage tonight. Just like myself being on the board of directors, I work towards, backcountry safety here. Kyle coming in as an ambassador this year, he's doing his part. The real simple for all of you guys who are watching tonight that's doing your part, literally just share, help spread the word. Don't be afraid to sign up for a class. So speaking of classes, that's the next thing I want to talk about. So Kyle, walk me through it. I know you took a level 1, and we'll get to that in a minute. But prior to taking the level 1 class that you took, tell me about the other Avalanche, either awareness or one-day classes that you took, and where and how.
So this year I did the one-day, the Northwest Glacier Cruisers organized. They had a little event up in Mount Baker where Jeff Hamilton, or I said Hamilton, not Hamilton, Hamilton came up and instructed. It was a little one-day, kind of I think it was 4 or 5 hours on snow, quick, just, essentially how he described it to me is a good Avalanche class, over a couple of days you can absorb all the information. He tried to give you everything you need, all the main essentials, all the main knowledge, and cram it into a 4-hour exercise. So we did the basic, explaining all the gear, how to use all the gear, beacon practice, and then we ended the day with actual full-on drills. So we had there were little beacon, it was like a beacon box thing, a training box that they buried throughout the areas that they could turn on and off. So there were 2 people that were buried, 2 beacons, and 1 person that had no beacon that was buried, that was just a box that we had to probe down and find. So essentially, it was just a quick day of, not refresher, I guess, for if you had never taken a class, you'd get it. What I tell people is, if you can, take the 3-day class, but if you can take the 1-day class, you're still going to get so much out of it. The 3-day class is helpful because you get some extra, slideshows, some in-class kind of knowledge and some notes. But a 1-day class, I'm not saying it's all you need, but it is incredibly helpful. And the takeaway, just practicing with your beacon for a half hour, burying another beacon under the snow and actually going and finding one without knowing where it is it will save your life, I guess. But it will save you all the time in the world when you have to actually do it. And the thing that I don't think people understand is it's one thing to have to use your beacon and find someone, but you'll never know what it's like to have that in the back of your mind. Like I think when I'm riding with my dad, it'd be one thing because when we're doing all these drills to actually have to find him, but if he actually went under, in the back of my mind, oh crap, my dad is underground right now, I have to find him, I'm all alone, because normally we just ride together. That level of stress and I guess that level of fear makes things exponentially harder. And the main thing, not the main thing, one of the main things I learned is you have to take your time. You have to know, you can't be in a hurry. Do the x-axis, double check, make sure your numbers are right. If you're in a hurry, that's when things go wrong. And I think one of the main issues is people not knowing how to use the gear enough. If you have to actually get into an emergency situation and you haven't practiced with it, it's one thing if you know how to use it. If you've never practiced at all, you're not going to know how to find people. And that's what I ran into multiple people on the hill that I told them that they said they had the gear, I have the avalanche bag, I have the shovels, I have the probes. Well, have you taken a class? And no, I haven't. Well, have you ever practiced with them? No, I haven't, but we're pretty good to go. Well, for example, this kind of goes with the not riding is my brother has not taken an avalanche class. He won't ever practice with the beacon. And his answer when we say why not is, well, I know what I'm doing, I know how to use it. When in reality, when me and my dad go together, when me and my brother go together, my dad looks at me and goes, just for the record, if you go under, he probably won't find you. And that's his last out the door, like, all right, have a great day. By the way, remember, you're in charge, because if you go under, your brother's not going to find you. And the big thing is people, I experienced this firsthand because I was the same way. I was like, oh, I know how to use a beacon. I have one. I've had one for 6 years. I've never had to use it. And then the first drill we did, I was walking in a circle, and I thought it read, I thought I was 1.6 meters away. I think I was 10 meters away, or 16 meters away. I read the thing completely wrong. I was walking in a circle. When I finally got close to him, if he was here, I dug down here. So the main thing is, like John Miller said, go slow, not fast. Go slow to go fast. Boom. Yep. If you're in a hurry, if you have 6 people, the other thing that we talked about is having a leader and how important that is, because if you have 6 people trying to figure out what to do and they're all scrambling, and you add to the fact that you know this person and they're your friend and they're underground, you're just going to have issues.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, Kyle, I'll just tell you that whole scenario there is a story that I share personally all the time too. Is I had the unfortunate experience on my way to work back in, I think it was 2014 or 2015. I remember the day, it was December 1st. and driving into work, and I came across a pedestrian accident where literally a little old lady got ran over by some young guy in a Jeep, and I was one of the first ones on scene, and it was my responsibility amongst a couple others to try and dial 911. And I tell you what, I use my cell phone every single day. I know exactly how to use it. And I tell you what, it took me 2 minutes straight to dial the 3 numbers, 911. And because of the state of mind you're in, I mean, you're literally witnessing a tragedy, not to mention it's probably a loved one. And so the only advantage you have is if you practice. I mean, even something that I use every single day, I struggled to make that call to 911 and to explain what was going on and to get help there as quick as possible. And I pray that I don't ever have to be in that situation where I'm out there with loved ones and having to dig in the snow for them. But if there is, I want to know that, it's because we've done practice and training and, we've got our stuff together. But the ability to kind of stay calm in that moment and stuff is a big deal. So, the level 1 class you did was great. So let's, anything else on classes or thing that you want to share real quick now, or do you have any future goals for additional classes, or how frequently do you plan on, taking maybe another level 1 or even one-day classes? Is that going to be an annual thing for you, or what's your strategy?
I would say once a year would be kind of it. Maybe not saying take the 3-day course every year, but I would recommend that highly. I think Mike Duffy's watching right now. I really loved that class, Mike. Thank you very much. But I would highly recommend, if not taking a 1-day every year for a refresher, taking a day on the hill to practice and kind of refresh your mind with how to do everything. The other thing is in terms of actually having the idea of how to use your gear. I used a tracker, I think it was a 1, the original BCA tracker, and this year I got a tracker 3. Granted, they're both beacons. Granted. When I first started using the tracker 3, I was a little confused. They're the same exact, essentially, thing, but if you're not up to date on how to use your gear, they can be confusing. So the first time I used it, I was a little kind of confused with understanding how, even though it's the exact same thing, even though the same numbers, same layout, just newer, it was a little bit more confusing for me. I had to kind of get used to it. The big thing, one of the things we learned in Duffy's class was if you're riding with people, look at what beacon they used and figure out if you had to, for some dumb reason, use it, how do you put it in search mode? How do you not put it in search mode? The basics. And we go back to when we had our class, we had someone pass away at Gallagher in an avalanche. He went under, and the 2 people who hadn't gone under both had BCA vests on with their tracker inside the vest. They were eating lunch, so they took the vests off, so they didn't have any beacons. The avalanche came down and buried all their stuff, so they ran up, dug one guy out, and had to use his Ortovox beacon. They didn't know how to use his Ortovox beacon, so they were essentially walking in circles trying to find someone who, I believe he had hit a tree, so he had already passed away. But we ran into the guy who had actually found him, and he said he came up there, found him in 3 minutes. And the group had been, the husband and wife had been up there for a half hour trying to find this guy.
Yeah.
So the big thing is, it's definitely a refresher, because even though I had taken the class last year, when I first started using the Tracker 3 this year, it definitely took me a couple minutes to remember how to do everything, to get the idea of, how the search works with the circle, and understanding how to read the arrows and understanding how to read the numbers.
Yeah.
Would definitely say it's something that you should, I would say annually, if not, a 1-day class, just pull out all the gear and practice with it. It doesn't take much. Walk over in the parking lot, bury it in a snow berm, have your friend turn around and go find it.
Yep, sounds good. So I'm going to pause just for a second. I see one of the questions in the feed here is, where do you find the classes? So a great place right here in Washington State to find classes is right on NWAC. So it's www.nwac.us. So www.nwac.us is a local place that you can find any and all Avalanche classes. There's snowmobile specific ones that are called out, but there's just all kinds of other training and awareness that goes on too. The other thing is local clubs. So the Cascade Drift Skippers out of Issaquah, the Northwest Glacier Cruisers, the Snow Jammers, just staying connected with those clubs. They'll give you a lot of information as well. And anybody here can use me as a resource personally also. So, if you're on here, you're watching this video, you're either a friend of mine or you're watching the video, click my name, add me as a friend. Scott Spiro just dropped the link in the newsfeed here, so you guys have it too. And I'll go in afterwards and I'll answer everybody's questions, make sure that if you have anything too, but just know that I'm absolutely here as a resource. So is Kyle. Kyle, do you have your permission to people to friend you on Facebook as well?
Yep.
Awesome.
Shoot me a message.
Cool. So let's shift over to the ambassador program. So you know, obviously it started off at the beginning of the season. We got going too, but just, you know, share, you know, maybe a couple of things. You know, what was probably one of the most, you know, how would you categorize what was your best experience of the season? If you kind of had to isolate, you know, an experience this season that you had with the ambassador program, you know, what's your most proud moment of the season in the ambassador program?
So I would say a couple of different stories. The first one was right at the beginning of the season. I ran into a group of people. I think it was just a boyfriend, girlfriend, like a, you know, some situation like that. And they had just crossed over. They do a lot of motocross, a lot of dirt biking, and they had just bought 2 new snowmobiles. And they had, I think, like school backpacks, like Under Armour school backpacks. They had, you know, shovels. They didn't have any probes. And I kind of chatted with them in the parking lot for about 10 minutes on just, you know, where to find classes, where to get gear, if they had any gear, if they knew, you know, the risks they were traveling into, because we were at Crystal Springs. So it was like a moderate day. So I was just explaining, you know, you are traveling into avalanche terrain as well as traveling through avalanche terrain. We ran into them a couple weeks later, and they actually had bought, they had the bags, they had the beacons, they had the gear, and they were taking, I think, a one-day class later, a couple months down the road that they had signed up for. And they saw me, they remembered who I was, and they said, hey, Kyle, you know, we got all the gear. They were super excited. They had their NWAC stickers because I gave them the NWAC stickers when I ran into them.
Nice.
But it was kind of nice to know that I guess I made a little bit of an impact on at least a couple people that took the initiative to get the gear and then to get the training. The next, I think, probably biggest impact I had was I ran into a group of people. The main thing was if they were on a sled, the experience I gathered over the season was if they were on a sled that was pre-2005-ish, 2004, they usually didn't have any gear and they usually didn't have any sort of training. I ran into a group after, it was kind of in that weekend where we started to have a couple avalanche deaths. I think that was like after four or five people had passed away. And I ran into a group of people that they didn't have any gear. They all were on kind of old sleds, but they wanted to listen, if that makes sense. And it was very interesting talking to these people because they were really engaged with everything I was saying regarding just kind of taking the avalanche gear. Robert, I keep 2, one on my pack and one in my on my sled. So if you get stuck on a hill, you shouldn't take your pack off. You should just take it off your backpack. But in terms of things, you know, I was talking to all these people, and I guess it's sad to say that, you know, a couple people passed away, and that's what it took for a lot of people to kind of start noticing the dangers. But it was a group of people that when I had encountered a couple of them, it was a group of like 8, and I ran into them 2 weeks later, just a group of, I think it was only 3 of them, but 2 of them had bought beacons. None of them had gear when I had talked to them prior, but it was nice because they remembered who I was, and they talked because sadly that day another person passed away while we were talking. I think that was Luke. So it was nice that I guess some people listened to what I said, and for the most part I never had any issues with people going, what do you want? Because I would always just approach people, how you guys doing? Do you have gear? And it was always a positive experience, but it was nice, I guess, to finally see that there were people that wanted to listen and that truly didn't know what the terrain they were traveling into. Yeah,
I mean, that's something that I find too with all the interactions and engagements that I have is, you know, there's a lot of times that people feel like, oh, I'm busy, you know, they don't really take in time to pause to hear it, but you know, if you can approach them and just start a conversation and let them know genuinely that you're there for them and concerned about them, and just start the conversation, you know, ask them about the forecast, ask them about, you know, the avalanche gear. Generally speaking, people are pretty open to it. You know, there's been some struggles out there too, but I think, you know, to me, here's my advice for everybody watching is that, you know, it's great that folks like myself and Kyle are involved, and we're doing what we honestly can to drive this awareness in the industry, and especially here in the Pacific Northwest. But don't believe for a second that every single one of you watching doesn't have as much influence over your friends and family and people you ride with of any of us, right? I mean, it's, you know, I see Austin is here. So Austin, for example, you can come in, your riding buddies, if you start working with them and talking to them about the fact that, you know, hey, we really need to have the gear, we need to take a class together. Frankly, we're going to get to a point where if you know, you don't have the gear, you don't have the training, I may not come ride with you as much or at all, honestly. You know, there was, you know, it was probably, for me, I'll just share a personal moment. It's like, for me, one of the hardest moments I had this entire season is a moment when I had to tell somebody that I couldn't ride with them that day because they didn't have the right gear. And, you know, we always said on my rides, we set the expectations ahead of time. You know, I offer like, hey, do you have it? It's in the truck. You know, they didn't want to go back to the truck and get their gear because they felt like it was, you know, not a dangerous area or not a dangerous day. And I still kind of am emotional about it a little bit because, like, nothing I hate worse than not going riding with somebody. But I felt like, you know, setting the example, doing what we do out there, you know, making compromises, you know, heaven forbid if something had happened. Like, I would never forgive myself if I had allowed that person to come out and ride with me that day and something happened to them. I would never forgive myself for it. And so, you know, sometimes tough love is the right kind of love when it comes to this kind of education and training and the influence we can have over our own friends. So your brother, for example, keep working on him. We're going to get him in a class. We're going to get him trained eventually. So.
That would be the goal, because it's one day.
Yeah.
One day, we'll see.
Yep. Sounds good. You know, I guess, Kyle, what do you feel like you personally gained from, you know, the whole experience this season, you know, when it comes to just all the interactions, the people? I mean, was there some moment in your time this season that was kind of an aha moment for you where you felt like you were learning from others just as much as they were learning from you? And, you know, what was your takeaway from the season? Is kind of what's your big takeaway in a positive way?
A couple of different things. One is, like, it goes back to the community. We have a huge snowmobile community, and when, I guess, a lot of bad things happened this year, and seeing everyone kind of come together, and, like, I guess the culture that we have is kind of nice. But in terms of, like, that aha, that feeling satisfied moment, was just everyone I talked to, that when I saw them again on the mountain, they saw me, they remembered the conversations we had. If they had done anything since then, them coming up to me and saying, hey, we actually have gear now, or hey, we've you know, we signed up for a class or something along those lines. Or when I would talk to people and they would tell me, hey, you know, we are going to do this. We've talked about it. That was the biggest thing. Is the biggest thing is when I was talking to people who hadn't signed up for a class yet, the majority of the people were, oh, you know, we've talked about it, but we've never done it. We've always, it's been up in the air, but we've never actually taken the initiative to just sign up for it. And it was nice when I was seeing those people actually do that. And it was nice to actually get, I guess, feel like I was making a difference in terms of maybe not, you know, saving a life here or there, but I guess if talking to all these people and explaining all the dangers maybe one day does save someone's life, that'd be nice. Because it goes back to whole community as a whole.
No, that's awesome.
I don't know.
No, I agree. It's about serving the community and knowing that you're making a difference, right? And, you know, just like you, I mean, I'm not personally one of the official ambassadors. That's you and Brandon. But as you know, just as much as anything, is I'm out in the snow kind of, you know, preaching the gospel of avalanche awareness as well, interacting with lots of people, creating environments for folks to be able to get on sleds for the first time and learn about gear, learn what kind of gear they need. And I would tell you that, you know, very similar to your story, the thing that drives me personally and gives me the most satisfaction are those private messages that I get from folks that, you know, you never see it on Facebook, you never do, but very private messages saying, you know, hey, we really appreciate what you're doing, the messages that you're getting out. Here's a decision I made. I went and got the gear. I appreciate you giving me the information. We went out and did this, that. You know, very aligned to the stories that you're sharing us here well too. And I know that's hugely fulfilling for me and what motivates me to keep going. Just keeping people excited in the sport. So I'm going to turn it over to the audience for just a minute. I know it takes a few seconds for it to populate up, but what questions? I know we got questions that are already in the feed that we maybe have missed. We'll go back and we'll answer those afterwards. But in the moment live here, let's shoot out a couple of questions for Kyle. And what do you guys want to know from Kyle, either about the season, about the program, you know, anything there. So Kyle, you going to run away on us, or are you coming back on screen here, buddy?
I'm sorry. I was adjusting my position. Sorry. We're good. I'm not leaving.
Your dad's a distraction, isn't he? Bruce, get the heck out of there, buddy.
Oh, he's sitting over there trying to give me the talking because he's my manager. He's my interview manager.
Tell him we'll get him on in the future for some other reason. We'll get an excuse to get Bruce on someday, because that's something too. We want to get the audience engaged in the program too. So people are populating some questions. So please, anybody watching, type in a question or two. We'll see if we can answer those here live. But what I'll tell you while we're waiting for those questions to populate is that a week from today, based on popular demand. And I think episode 1, I had asked a bunch of folks who, what do they want to see? Who do they want to talk to? And so we were able to make a connection with a certain person from Search and Rescue. Michael Smith is going to be on a week from today, which, by the way, is Mother's Day. If you haven't already planned something for Mother's Day, make sure you do so. Buy your mom a card, get her some flowers, take her out to dinner, do something like that, right? So a week from today, Michael Smith will be on with me talking about Search and Rescue. He'll be sharing some of those things too. So questions are on the hat. These are NWAC hats. So go ahead and put it on. There you go, Kyle. So these hats are available if you sign up for a membership with NWAC. So there's some items that are out there that are available for purchase, but to my knowledge, these aren't available for purchase. These there's different levels of membership you can get. You can get a basic $30 membership for the Northwest Avalanche Center to basically just support the Avalanche Center, to start getting emails, communications, those kind of things. And if you sign up for a $100 level of membership, you also get a gift with purchase, if you will, and you can get a T-shirt. I've got some different Sled NWAC or NWAC T-shirts that I have in the past. We have regular Northwest Avalanche T-shirts. Hats are an option. There's other things too. If you go into a higher level, there's goggles that are available. But anyway, check it out. But either way, you're supporting the Northwest Avalanche Center, and really what you're doing is you're supporting things like this program. Kyle going out in the snow, interacting with people, getting people educated and training is what your membership goes to. And that membership also gives you the ability to connect with the Northwest Avalanche Center in a more meaningful way. You have that direct communication via email. You really are aware of what's going on. So that's a great program there. And on that topic, I'll just share with you guys too, is 2 weeks from yesterday, in 2 weeks on May 19th, is the Northwest Avalanche Center's Spring Sled Fest. So this is, are you going to be there, Kyle?
I'll be there.
All right. So Kyle, if you guys want to meet Kyle, if you want to meet Kyle and myself in person, we will both be at the Spring Sled Fest, which is going to be at Big Block Brewery. There's still some last-minute logistics being worked out. I think we're probably going to end up back in the Redmond location is what I'm finding out now. I know I announced that we were going to go to Issaquah, but I think we're going to end up back in Redmond now again, which was the original plan. And same thing there. Come on in. It's a party. We got a brewery there, great beer. It's depending on the location where we have it, I think I'll double check on whether it's 21 and older or if we'll be able to have minors there as well. I think it depends on which location we end up at. The one that's open to the public, I don't think currently allows minors there, but if we do the private event there, I think we can, but I will double check on that and put it in the event. But yeah, it's going to be just a party. We'll have food there. And also we're going to be encouraging people to get involved with the Avalanche Center by getting into a membership. When you sign up for a membership, you'll be included in a raffle. We're going to have like a BCA Link radio we're giving away. Rumor has it, I think we're going to get a BCA Tracker 3, I think we're going to get for the raffle as well. And then I have a bunch of goggles and different things as well that I have available, a couple of DVDs left. And so we're going to have a great party May 19th, great time for everybody to come and enjoy. So I'm not seeing where does Kyle ride? That's the question. Where does Kyle
I got two questions. Two questions. So Robert, and then is that Carly? Did I say that wrong? I probably said that wrong.
I'm going to say Carolee, I'm guessing. So.
Well, Carolee, I grew up riding in an area called Gold Creek or Lake Cochise. That's, I guess, if you had to say my main go-to like stomping ground would be Cochise. I like Crystal Springs, but I know a lot of kind of little, I guess, hidden little secret spots in Cochise, so that's the go-to. I like to try and go to Baker. Dad doesn't like to go to Baker because it's a far drive, so that's going to be changing when I buy a truck in October. So any of you 17 people tuning in, if anyone has a large diesel truck they would like to sell, please send me a message. I'm in the market for something that can hold a sled deck. Robert Steenbirch, why did I switch to Polaris? Well, I really don't know. I've been on cab my whole life. I probably will sell my Polaris. I have a 3-year warranty. In 2.5 years, I'm probably going to sell it and go back to cat, depending on how the Mountain Cat is. I don't want an Alpha 1. The reason I don't want an Alpha 1 is because I've been on an M-Series chassis. If you've ever been on an M-Series chassis, they're really, really hard to pull over. So I'm used to that. I'm used to having a lot of heaviness, and I think the Alpha 1 will be too easy. And as weird as that sounds, I get that it's really easy to pull over on flat ground, but if you are in a foot of powder, it does not matter. You're going to be able to tip anyways. If you know how the mechanics of the sled work and how to ride the sled, I personally do not think there will be any difference between one rail and 2 rails. I think it's cool. I think it's going to be the ultimate go-to wife sled because it'll be easy to pull over for women in the backcountry. I think guys will also like it. That's not stereotyping. I think it'll be good. I don't know.
I'm gonna wait to ride one before I give my review. So I won't pass judgment on the machine until I get the chance to ride it. So I didn't get a chance this year.
Exactly.
So we got another question here. Michael Flower wants to know how many people use two-ways or SENA. I'm not sure what SENA is, but I'm assuming that's another way of two-way communication. But two-way radios, what I'm finding is more and more people in the backcountry are using two-way radios. The BCA Lynx are my favorite. I would tell you that there's a lot of folks out there with Garmin's, Motorola's, and different things. But I would tell you that I can tell without even knowing what they're using, just by listening to the sound quality, who's on the BCA Link radio and who's on anything else. The Garmin's, the Motorola's that I see out there, they sound very garbled and very muffled, like when you're trying to hear them through the BCA Links. But if you're on a BCA Link to BCA Link, it's crystal clear. You can hear everything people are saying. So lots of people out there. I mean, if I had to give it a percentage, I'd say probably at least half the people I see out in the mountains nowadays are using two-way radios.
I would also say it has to go with the gear. If they have radios, they also usually have Avalanche gear. If they don't have Avalanche gear, they usually have a little Motorola Radio Shack radio. We use Garmin Rhinos. I've always wanted to get the BCA Links. Dad's always turned it down, but I got a job now, so I'm buying the new ones when they come out. Also, Brendan, yes, Cochise is very overgrown and it's really bad, but there's some secret areas we found that aren't that bad. So come ride with us. We'll show you some fun spots. I have my Garmin mounted to my dash, so all I have to do to talk is grab it or click the button without grabbing it. So if you are looking for an alternative to the BCA style radios, you can buy a Garmin Rhino and you can buy a RAM mount and mount it to the dash. Or I have a Snow Bungee handlebar bag that has a water bottle holder, puts it right in the water bottle holder. Perfect. So
cool. Woo-hoo. All right. Did we get all the questions so far? Sounds like Sena is the two-way radio that you can talk with no buttons needed. So I don't personally have any experience with those, so I can't necessarily speak to those.
I actually do.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't like them.
Why is that?
They get wet. They don't make a waterproof one. We used to have the helmet, like the motorcycle style radios. They have terrible range. If you're in point of view, you're good. The second you go into the trees, I can't hear my dad. He says he can hear me. I can't hear him. If you get them wet at all, if it's snowing, you're going to have a terrible signal. We've gone through two pairs. We had the communicators, and then we had another one. Like Michael said, it's line of sight. If you're a mile away but you're flat, I can see you. They have terrible range when it's actually in the trees. They're great. My dad said they're great because whenever I have an issue, I just yell, and he hears me yelling, so he knows something's wrong. However, we went back to the Rhinos. Also, an InReach. If you're not riding with an InReach, I would highly recommend getting one of those. It's cheap life insurance, as a lot of people say. So.
Yeah, no, I've used an InReach now for 3 years, maybe 2-3 years or so. And yeah, it's hard to go without it. So I mean, the one I have is the orange one. It's before it was bought out by Garmin. So it's the original DeLorme InReach. It was the orange one that had the GPS built in, and I use it for tracking. I can go back and look at my lines for the day and see where I was at, and research areas based on how close I was with. And the ability to do two-way communication on the mountain is incredible. Like I can literally do something as simple as send my family a message saying, "Hey, I'll be home at a certain time," before I even hit the cell phone service down on the highway. I can be out in the backcountry, but if I have an emergency, not only can I send an SOS, but I can actually text custom messages along the way on the fly. Maybe you have a mechanical failure. It's not life or death, so you don't need to necessarily call search and rescue, but you might want to have a friend come out and find you, right? Like hopefully you're with somebody else, you're with a group. For some reason you need help, that you don't have the group there too. You can text people, let them know where you're at. Every message gives the GPS coordinates of where you're at, and lets them be able to see exactly what's in your mind. And it's two-way, right? That's one thing I love about the InReach is it's a two-way communicator where you can actually receive messages just like you can send. Where with the Spot Messenger, you send the message, you get a kind of a notification that it went through, but you don't have any way to receive a message back from anybody. So love that. So, all right.
So Michael had one last question on whether or not we use GPS to get around. So when I'm in like Cochise or Crystal Springs, not really, because I know the area. We have had GPS really save us when we had an experience. We went to Bear Paw about 2 or 3 years ago. We got all the way in towards kind of like this area called Excelsior, and then the fog dropped down. And when I say the fog dropped down, I mean if you were standing 5 feet in front of me, I couldn't see you. The way we got in there, you have to follow a very specific line, and you're traveling on ridge lines. We essentially followed the Ryan. Yeah, we followed the Garmin's out, specifically looking only at the GPS. And there was a time we were riding with a couple of our friends, and we approached a hill, and essentially I watched the first guy go and disappear, the second guy go, and all I could think is, well, if he picked the wrong spot, we have 4 people who are all about to just kind of land on each other. But we've definitely used GPS to get out. Normally, the areas we ride, I generally know where I'm going, so we don't use GPS to get around. However, we always are recording everything we're doing and all the places we're going. Same with the InReach. So we get home and we look. If we get to a new area, if we explore a new area, we open up the InReach map and see, okay, this is where we were, this is how we got here, let's look for alternate routes as to how we can get there.
Yeah, that's very similar to how I use mine. I can't honestly say that I use GPS or my InReach too much to like navigate to places. Typically when I'm in the backcountry, I'm kind of just heading out line of sight, but I might stop for a second, refer to the map and make sure I'm heading generally the right direction. But if I'm kind of out there just searching around, looking to, I usually like to stumble across stuff. It's kind of my way to do it. But definitely on the way out, like what I found too is, the tracks that you're leaving can be invaluable for a couple of reasons. One is, if it fogs in, clouds in, visibility goes away because of a storm, or you just simply get turned around and you're in a bunch of trees and you can't remember which drainage you're in, and like you maybe don't want to necessarily go out the way you came in. You want to take a shortcut to get out, and you think generally, yeah, I think if I head up over this ridge, that'll take me up to the meadows, to the trail. I've done that out of Blue It a few times, and just pulling the GPS out and looking and making sure which way is north, south, east, west, heading the way I want to go. It just helps me connect things. So.
Yep, definitely don't want to get turned around. So. Cool.
Well, I think we've been doing this we're at 47 minutes already, so I'm kind of over my own internal clock of how long I like to be on here, just because I like to respect everybody's time. But one last call, Kyle. If there's any final words you want to share with everybody, just. Maybe a thank you for the season, or, NWAC and the ambassador program. Any final words you want to share?
I had a wonderful experience representing NWAC this year. I would highly encourage everyone to, if you don't have any training, look into it. If you don't have the gear, I guess I had one piece of parting advice is when I was about 10, and this is when the Avalanche airbags had just come out, and they were, $1,000. And we ran into a group of people, and the guy had one on, and this was young, dumb logic. I was like, why would you ever spend so much money on a backpack? And that's what I asked him, because I was 10, and the idea of spending $1,000 on an Avalanche backpack was dumb to me. And his response was, when you're sitting 6 feet underground, $1,000 isn't anything.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything. He swore, but I'm gonna keep it PG for you. But that, I guess, that was essentially the parting wisdom I gave to people I talked to. You have no idea how many people I talked to that were on brand new, $10,000 Axis and RMKs from, they bought holdover 2-year-old sleds that were, 10 grand. They got into the sport, and I get, getting into the sport in an Avalanche bag being a little bit expensive. But a $200 beacon, $300 beacon is a one-time life insurance payment. And I don't know. That's all I can say. Is if you don't have the gear, it may seem expensive, but it's a one-time payment. And I always go back to that quote: when you're sitting underground, you're going to be thinking $300 wasn't anything.
Exactly.
What's your life worth?
So I remember this question came up earlier too, and it just came up again, is when do classes start for next season? Typically starting around mid-December is when you'll start to see, you'll actually see classes posted probably September, October. A great time to connect with us is at the Snow Show. If you guys live in Washington, you come to the Puyallup Snow Show every fall. Usually it's around that second or third week of October. We'll be there. We'll have a list of classes for the season by then, and we'll have it all set up too. But typically classes are December, January, February, March. Typically we do 3 to 4 months worth of classes, the one-day classes. And then we'll also by then have a schedule for any of the level 1 classes that are coming for the season as well. So hope that answers the question for those guys too. And again, this is always so much fun. I feel like I could do this forever and keep talking, but my conscience tells me it's time to get rolling. Don't forget to tune in next week to talk to Michael Smith about search and rescue. He's going to give us some tips on, how to, avoid needing search and rescue. He's also going to, talk you through things you can do if you're in a situation with search and rescue where you need to have them come out and get you. What can you do as a kind of a victim or a user of search and rescue to make their job easier to find you quicker? So we'll be talking about some of those things next weekend too. But Kyle, big thank you for you to jump on tonight. I appreciate you taking the time. And
thank you for having me on the show, John.
We'll see you out in the snow soon, right? Woo!
Hey, winter's not over, all right?
Yeah.
It may be 70 degrees this week, but I'm riding next week. So
yeah, we're going to be up at Baker. Up at Baker for almost another month yet. So, all right, man.
Yep.
Talk to you guys later. Ciao. Bye, guys.
Signing off.